Hey man, long time no see. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
How are things?
Good. I mean, I'm trying to stay as safe as possible during the quarantine. And I remember the last time we talked, your daughters are both still teaching, which is good at home, and you're still maneuvering around your
Yeah.
hobbies as well as your
I te-
teaching.
yeah, I'm teaching my classes online. We've adapted the best we possibly can right now. Uh, it's not the real face to face that we love to have out here, but making the best of it. I think we're all making the best of it at this point. My other daughter, who works with Six Man Cruises, she's got her job and she works here because they're in between cruise seasons. So I think her next one's one of them are Slipknot over in Spain
Hmm.
in August that they have hope that they're still going to be doing. And my other daughter takes her classes, so we're doing the best we can. We're very lucky.
And you get to spend more time in the garden, which is like something that you also thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I've been spending a little time in the garden. It's been raining a lot this week, so kind of ducked out today and put some corn seeds in the ground, and transplanted a few radishes, but that's about it.
Yeah, because I have a green thumb kind of, but not with the garden aspect. Like, I just have like a couple house plants that like
Nice.
it's like therapeutic and such. So ever since the 25th anniversary, you have been investing a lot of time in your other entrepreneurial projects. One that I'm really falling in love with, which is the 320 conversations that you kind of collaborated with Talinda Bennington.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about that. Like,
I think
how's that been
well,
going?
Talinda came to me. God, it's almost been a year ago, and said, she was looking to do something in Chester's legacy. And originally, of course, everyone wants to come to me and talk about a tour. And I was just at this point where I wasn't really the idea of a tour wasn't the most appealing thing. But I said, let me think. I think there's definitely totally understanding where this is coming from. Let's see if we can create something, a unique thing. And we put together a pretty awesome project called the 320 Festival, a 320 Project, 320 Festival. And I was able to take it into my teaching setting at USC and create a class for it. So we had students involved, and they've been working really hard on it. And it was going to be held on May 9th at LA Live. I went to my old friends at AG and Golden Voice, who I used to do a lot of shows with, and said, can I use this facility? And they were kind enough to find me a Saturday. A Saturday at LA Live was very difficult, but
Huh.
we had Club Novo, we had the Microsoft Theater, we had the movie theaters. Everyone really rallied around this concept and idea, and we were going to have 43. It was going to be completely free to the public. 43 nonprofits would be participating. We had a full stage of entertainment out in the plaza. We had speakers and roundtables at Club Novo, over 60 speakers lined up. And we went back into that teaching setting, and I said we should do a kickoff event, similar to what I did with all my tours when I would have those kickoff events. And we had it on March 9th at the USC campus, and very well attended. This right, it kind of seems like so long ago, but it was really only a month ago that we kind of were starting to go on lockdown. There was this
Yeah.
discussion that you shouldn't be going out, a lot of confusion. Not that there isn't a lot of confusion a month later out here right now, but that confusion's been different and created by a certain someone at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, which I'm on with you, which I won't watch him today.
Hmm.
Um, and we did the event. We did the event on March 9th, and we were lucky to have Ken Jeong, who is from The Hangover and Masked Singer, came out and co-hosted the event. And Talinda was there, and we brought in this woman named Tiffany Jenkins, from very big advocate for addiction recovery and mental health. She has her uh, podcasts and broadcasts, juggling the Jenkins. And we had some great organizations like NAMI, Rise Above Disorder, participating. I invited Morgan from Emo Night came out, and we had a
Oh, I
great
saw
night,
that. Yeah.
a great panel. And Justin Furstenfeld from Blue October did his one-person show. He has a movie coming out called Stand Back Up, or Get Back Up. I'm sorry, Stand Back Up, Get Back Up, and about his slip into addiction out on the road. That the story was, unfortunately, the story fits so many people we've known.
Hmm.
Success, the road, isolation, depression, addiction. But the movie was going to premiere at this event, and then that was on March 9th, and we we went online with it, and we had 194,000 viewers. So it kind of showed that
Congratulations, man.
we're kind of like, hey, there's definitely a need for this. And then March 11th hit. And March 11th was the day they shut down pretty much around LA. Like all the schools shut down.
Mm-hmm.
We were told that all our classes would be going online. There was no more large gatherings on campuses. You know, the dominoes started falling around everything. And, you know, everyone gets taken back a little bit in life. And I was at first going, oh my gosh, should we just put all this work in? It's not going to happen. But instead, we've turned it around, and it'll be going online.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be announcing the actual platforms in the next week or so. But we went back to all the panelists, and most of them are making themselves available. It'll actually run for 3 days on May 8th, 9th, and 10th. The 320 festival will be online.
Yeah.
Now, we've had to adjust a few things, like the film festival. We'll be doing a panel from the filmmakers. We were hoping to do the screening of these films. We'll be doing a panel with them. We had a benefit show scheduled for that evening, which was actually a ticketed event, and many of those artists now will be going online and doing something online as part of this event. So it's a pretty ambitious project. We're looking at about 21 hours of broadcast time.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just one of those things that mental health is not talked about as much, and the stage that Talinda is, she's putting herself on through the tragedy with her husband. Now that in general for mental health, we can kind of get more of an example of how it can affect somebody without even showing signs or any kind of symptoms, let alone, you know, what they're going through. Because when I was on the Warped Tour with Poeta in 2017, our first show was in Indiana. So we drove out from New Jersey to Indiana. And what happened was we played our show. We were on the Skull Candy stage, I'm sure as you know. So right next to us was one of the Journey stages, either left or the right foot. So we played our show, it was great. And then soon after we got the news, and that just kind of like brought like the mood down a little bit. Like everybody was just in complete shock. And then the whole community in itself basically, you know, wanted to make sure that if anybody was okay, to reach out, to do something. And it's just one of those things that I have a passion for, because I know I sometimes struggle with it, as well as like not as more as others, but I think we just need to put a little bit more of a light on mental health and any kind of addiction diseases that, you know, that people are afraid to talk about.
Well, in many ways, the stigma is starting to roll back. You know,
Yeah.
there was a stigma about I'm tough, the show must go on. You know, it's in general, you know, the stigma of mental health, and, you know, we're a microcosm of society, is starting to come back a little bit. You're not looked as damaged or, you know, a problem. You know, your mental health with the right help, with the right discussions, the right conversations. Sometimes that might be the right medications, the right change of lifestyle, which could be meditations. We're finding that many issues regarding mental health, one, you're not alone. There's a lot of people with the same issues. Two, they can be, through discussion and through community, you can fix a lot of these things, or at least not maybe fix them. You can bring them down. You can bring them to a manageable level. We have manageable levels of stress. We have manageable, you know, we all go through life, but understanding that other people has it and that it's okay, you know, and the mental health side, you know, and that's, you know, for me, a lot of it was there's a lot of people on the road, and we lost a whole generation of artists that were people that were my peers, you know, when you look at it. And when you have the people like Chester and Chris Cornell and Scott Weiland, Lane Stanley, you kind of keep going down the list of people that we lost from my generation. And those resources should be there. We should be able to have these things. So we thought with 320, we were going to cross. It wasn't, you know, of course, driven by our passion for music, but the wide range. We have a wide range of panelists. That'd be education and mental health, living with addiction. There's going, of course, crossing over with that. We're going to have mental health and first responders. We're having a panel on that. Mental health and sports, alternative treatments for mental health.
Good,
so
good.
You know, a lot of really good stuff there. And we'll be announcing it, and hopefully people will tune in and capture parts of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like bringing it back to Warped Tour with the sense when I was on in 2017, or prior to that in general for the tour, with selecting the bands that you put on your tour in general, that were a little bit more, on say underground, like what kind of like made you have an insight to where they might be, some of the more prominent acts, like such as, you had Motionless in White, who was in a battle of the bands at one point, and then they hit the bigger stage. Or Katy Perry, obviously, did her tour with, her as a solo artist, as well as Paris, who went for the Ernie Ball stage, and they immediately, I think, went to the main stage within like 2 weeks or something like that. So how did you kind of like make those decisions up, on your end to say, hey, like this band has a chance?
Well, I mean, I think but my background from working in those clubs 320 nights a year. I was working, when you figure 320 nights, you had minimum 3 bands. I was working with 1,000 bands a year.
Mm-hmm.
You started to get that feel watching young bands and watching things, kind of watching audiences. Some people will always give me it because they say, oh, you watch people instead of listen to it. Well, yes, you listen to music, but I watch the response to people. And that response could start out with 4 people on a dance floor one night, as an opening act in a club. But watching also the artist and seeing how how they interact with the crowd, how they can command a stage. It always gave me probably a little bit more background as an A&R person, by exposure than anything else. When I was working in those clubs, some nights you'd see something, and the rumor was that this was going to be the next big thing, and you'd be like, oh, and then you'd see a young band that no one really knew walk out on stage and just go, wait, what happened? This band right here. So when I had my own tour, I could kind of curate it a little bit more. Yes, it was influences. People were bringing this to me from all around the country.
I can only imagine, yeah.
But it got to a point where Motionless in White was a great band that could cross over between Warped Tour and Mayhem audience. I thought they were one of those bands that we could put on any one of our tours. Anything we were doing, Motionless in White could fit in, and that was pretty cool, because they didn't fit in like some little box that you put them into.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, and especially how the music industry changes over the decades. I think for me, for an example, when I was listening to CDs on a regular basis, changing my CD player, and it went to, getting everything online. The iPod was invented, as well as now we have streaming. Like, what do you think was like the most significant change in the industry for grabbing the attention of the viewer or the listener?
Well, like I said, it was that iPod originally, when people started listening to their music more on shuffle, when you could actually listen to. And I started seeing people that, that might be a metal person all of a sudden can jump over to a punk song or maybe a country influence song. And you were listening to the world on shuffle. So listening to things on shuffle created those influences. And that's where I started seeing the bands coming from multiple influences. Bands would start saying, all of a sudden you watch bands and they were pulling from, rap in a way, and they were putting melodies from metal into, and maybe all of a sudden it'd be a break into something that's kind of, if you really listen deeply, there were some country elements into it, but I think that was just society started, listening to things on shuffle. Mm-hmm. So that spilled over to artists who were gathering influences from all over just as well. So watching that really kind of develop was always very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, it completely evolved. I mean, especially I think Run DMC and Aerosmith kind of changed that perspective in collaborating with those mixing those genres. So it's just one of those things that I remember when we were going to set tours and a schedule with guarantees. Basically, we had to have good quality music and see if we fit the bill. However, now these booking agents kind of want to see your streaming plays on, say, Spotify in order to get you on a tour and such.
Right, which is I think that's a tricky one, because can the band carry it live?
Yeah.
That's where I maybe had a little issues, because when I used to work in the clubs, I used to know all the bands, and I'd seen them play live. But as the years went past, I wasn't going out 320 nights a year. I had a family, I had school, and things that we were doing at home, so I wasn't out as much. So all of a sudden, there was that moment in time. Bands were getting signed off of streams. They were getting put on tours off of streams, but maybe they weren't ready to perform live.
Mm-hmm.
Warped Tour was a tour that you needed to be able to perform live. You were usually up against at least one or two other stages at any given time, if not more. There's a lot of distractions. So if you could not carry a show live, you couldn't really perform on Warped Tour. And I got to a point where I wasn't going out. I was booking a few bands based on recommendations. And I'll never forget a band that they were nice girls. They were super nice, called the Millionaires.
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
You know, they're super nice people, but they were sent out on the road, and this was a management company I'd done a lot with, and they were sent out by the management company that I trusted would get it that you don't want to send your band out that can't perform live. And they got out on tour with us, and they just couldn't perform live.
Mm-hmm.
Deep in my heart, I wish I probably would have done them a favor by sitting them down and telling them to go home and get better and come back the following summer or something as a live act. But really, I ended up having to shelter them almost.
Oh, wow.
Putting them in spots where I knew, like, I think Bring Me the Horizon might have been on that tour. So you'd always make sure they were playing against those bands. So everyone would go see those bands on those stages that were pretty hardcore music fans. And they would not be put in spots where they were taking a lot of abuse from the fans because they just weren't ready for that live performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a shame, especially because like when you like take a step back and you look at a band, like you kind of have an idea, like they're ready with the experience that you have doing the clubs and all. Like for example, like I remember when you were saying something about how Good Charlotte had like a really goofy album cover, and then you go heard them play live, and you're like, wow, this band is definitely
great.
Great live performance. Yeah.
You know, I think that was just they were young. You know, the label had a lot of influence on that first album, you know, but, you know, hey, they turned out all right, you know. Once everyone got to, plus they're just genuinely nice people.
Mm-hmm.
Benji and Joel are, you know, the whole band is but Benji and Joel, just genuinely nice people. You wanted to support them. You wanted them to be successful.
90% of the bands and the artists and the crew that I met on Warped Tour when I was on it, like, were completely warm and welcoming. They knew we were coming from the sponsorship of Skull Candy, so it was really cool that, you know, we were just hanging out with our last night and just like throwing around a frisbee or just talking to hands like houses, just like having like a normal conversation. So,
well, that's what I always said. We're, you know, really technically, you know, and I think we're going to see that more. I'm hoping after this coronavirus thing. But maybe people are recognizing that we are a community. They were all artists. They were all crew people. We need to support each other because, you know, I watched the internet kind of get in the way of people actually meeting and bands actually, because when bands would sometimes come towards those last few years of Warped and say, oh, we don't want to tour with this band, or we don't want to be on a tour with that. I'd be like, wouldn't you want to be on a tour with all the bands?
Absolutely, yeah. Why are you even like having that thought process in your head?
And the process was, we don't like them. And I said, well, if you don't like him, it's not like you're forced to hang out with someone. You're not forced to endorse someone. And you know what? If you really don't think they're that good of a band, wouldn't you want to play right before or after them every day so you can steal their fans if you're so, you know? I always said that Anti-Flag, who was very political, you know, they had their great band, but they didn't care. They just wanted to play in front of people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because the message was so important. So they didn't judge, you know, Attila or some band, something like some of these other bands did. Mm-hmm. They just wanted to go out there and kick ass and steal their fans.
And that's what they did. I mean,
even you know, and then there was a few times, you know, it'd be like I'd get a little bit, you know, and you know, here, I don't want to be a Warped Disc band. I go, well, what's wrong with being a Warped Disc band? Some of those bands like Bad Religion, No Effects, and Pennywise now have 30-year, almost 40-year careers. Some of them, and you know, bands who did Less Than Jake, who played the most Warped tours ever, and they've had a pretty nice life. You know, they've got to do what they wanted to do their whole lives, and I think they felt that Warped Tour was a big part of that.
Yeah, that's just the ignorance because of the fact that, you know, you're put in the spotlight with having one of the only tours that is doing a cross-country run, if not the only tour, over an entire summer. So it's basically all eyes on the Warped. And for that reason, some people are just picky. I can't wrap my head around people's opinions and stuff. So I just kind of like brush it aside.
So, you know, we're really working on this 320. We'll be making these announcements in the next short while here. But we plan on having it online, and the teaching is going great. And I'm actually listening to music, get back to enjoying music.
Mm.
I'm not, I was got to this point where I was listening to music to just book music. Will this work on the show? Will this be something that will be on a festival? So, the past 6 months or 7 months, I've been able to start to listen to music in a different way again.
What was our stage manager was Mitch for Skull Candy in 2017? What was his like? Was he with you on the tour for a while, like over the years?
Oh, you had Mitch Alden,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mitch Alden. Yeah, that guy's a character.
yeah. Well, Mitch was. I knew Mitch all the way back to 1995. He was the road manager for Sublime.
Okay, and weren't they kicked off the tour?
Well,
The first year.
They were sent home for a little while.
Yeah.
In a lot of sense. No, it's like bands. It's funny. They go like there's a few bands who have like use that as or use that at points of their career that they were kicked off Warped Tour. One Sublime was sent home because their dog. We didn't have any food, and the dog ate all. It was just a crazy story. We had a rule: no dog. With them, no dog, no friends.
Yeah.
You didn't know. The dog was bad. He was a bad dog. Lou Dog was a bad dog,
Mm-hmm.
but their friends were the worst. And it's nice to see though a couple of their friends recently came and spoke to me. I think it was almost a point of like making amends because they made my life so miserable. And now that they've grown up and they work in the sober living community and everything, they're doing well in life. They survived. I'm surprised they're still alive. When they were at that point in '95, I wouldn't have been surprised if someone had put a bullet in their head or something would have happened to them really bad. Trust me, at one point in my life, if I had a loaded gun, I probably would have done it myself. But they grew up. You can't. It's hard to remain an asshole your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So I always said that either you grow up, you go to jail, or you die. There's no in between. You can't just be that kind. You can't be what they were at that point.
No, I've seen people like grow up. They peak at a certain age or a certain time period, and that's it.
Yeah, they expect it. So Sublime, they did get sent home in New York. I said, join me in Seattle. It wasn't a big deal. They only missed back then. We used to have to do we did Chicago and Milwaukee and had to drive all the way to Seattle. So it was like two shows.
Wow.
It wasn't like they were just sent away for a couple of days because my life was my career. I was putting everything out on the line, and they were taking they were taking too much time. They were just too much of my effort babysitting them.
Yeah.
A few other bands, but they were, soft spark. Sadly, we lost Brad Noel right after that summer.
Mm-hmm. Are you still working on a bunch of nonprofits after the Warped Tour has ended? Besides the 320, have you invested time in anything?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at a project right now. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. We'll know in the next little bit. But I've got an idea, and it's going to include a lot of those Warped Tour nonprofits. We still throw our charity golf tournament for Music Cares. We do events, our auction for TJ Martell. I'm still involved with the nonprofit world, working with Generation SOS, which was a concept off the Fend a couple of years ago. So, we're definitely, at this point in time, I think we're all need to stand for something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially because when we were on the tour, it seemed like trying to get a hold of you just to have a small conversation. You're just so busy. I think you just there's no kind of relaxation mode besides towards I guess the end of the night when you have some downtime to read a book or something or.
Oh God, I'd start a book at the beginning of the summer and I'd get on the bus and I'd read a page. I think I got through what are we out there 56 days or something.
Yeah.
I got 65 pages in a book.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely towards the end there physically. I work one way, 100% all in. So physically, it was pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Exhausted out there all the time. But you got up every morning and you put on that show.
Or you show up to a barbecue where we're playing knockout and you actually kind of kick ass and knock us out of the game.
I make a brief moment. You pick your moments to pick your moments in between to gain your credibility. It's we weren't going to many barbecues, but you pick that moment and you jump in and oh man, people go, you can hang at a barbecue, and I duck around the corner 5 minutes later and go to bed. So that wasn't a secret.
No, that's cool. No, we had a good time. Yeah, it was crazy. So the tour that we had was for 11 days. We had a blast. Thankfully for the sponsorship through Skull Candy. So thankfully they were actually a partner of the Warped Tour again due to having us on there. Have you taken any interest into going into the conferences in the near future, or like traveling in that sense more so, like speaking to bigger public audiences, like you kind of did at the Launch Music Conference in Lancaster?
I've been actually, now that I'm focusing on teaching at USC, the traveling's way down. You
Yeah.
know, it's the traveling's way down. I'm not jumping on planes like I used to. I used to like love doing it. I'd go all over them and do it anywhere, panels, speakers, and everything. I'm really focused at being at home right now.
Hmm.
It's been nice, teaching that Tuesdays and Thursdays, full schedule on campus. And anyone who tells you that teaching is Tuesdays and Thursdays is wrong. It's the rest of the week you're dealing with. You're going, with school. You've got things going on.
Hmm.
You got grading papers. You've got office hours. So really, it's the traveling. Gosh, it was strange. It was, it was the other day for Christmas. We went to Jamaica, and traveling was like all foreign again. Like, oh wow, got to have this paperwork, got to have this. Where it used to be like pick up the bag and bail in an hour. It was now I'm just becoming that tourist out there once in a while on a plane. Not living out of a backpack.
Got a big DSLR camera right in the front of you.
Exactly.
Backpack so full of stuff.
Around my neck with a passport and ID. If found, returned to.
Yeah. No, that's cool though. Yeah, launch is coming up, and they just rebooked it, or they postponed it to June. I believe that just went up today. So I was kind of curious. I believe I was there when you were speaking, and they got a pretty good lineup coming on as well. So yeah. So have you had any kind of like advice? Do you have any kind of advice for bands who, although they have to have great quality music, like what's the next step for them in all for them to become a regular or like touring artist in a sense?
Well, I think it's going to be one of these times learning how to use some of these tools to artist develop, because we're all locked in our houses right now, and I think an artist could kind of start this technology that's now available for these in-house concert series, insight to kind of build your audience that way. If I was an artist, I'd start developing my own series, of weekly formats where I can build my relationship with people online. That could be like a fun thing, not only musically, maybe that's interspersed with like, what are the band's hobbies like at home right now? Are they cooking? Are they canning? Are they doing art? Kind of building up make that connection with people, and show them who you are as more than an artist, and then blend your art back into that. I think there's a great time for relate in a strange way, even though it's online, for that relationship with the fans to be done.
Yeah, because I see a lot of going into the local scene. We kind of we're just play shows with local kids and build a community there. And then sometimes, after we were on Warped Tour, they would ask us a bunch of questions. I was like, oh yeah, you just need to really get yourselves out there personally, as well as, and they're doing it with great content, with great music, and it's nice to see like a community base around supporting each other, let alone kind of attacking. Because like back in 2013, like I did like a metalcore project, which we did the Ernie Ball Battle of the Bands, so we were on Warped for one day in Homedale. But that community was hard to wrap our heads around, considering the fact that everybody's trying to like not step on each other, but try to have one up, on the next band, which was very strange to me.
Well, that was, I think, a moment. I think there was this time where and I think there is a sense of community coming back. I think we got tired of this competition, everyone being in competition. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a moment in time when we can pull each other back up and help each other. Mm-hmm. People realizing that if you help other people, it can only really sometimes help you. It's not knocking them down the stairs, not chopping their heads off if they get a little bigger than you. It's support them, and if they remember, and who cares if they're the band that breaks from your city, if they remember you and bring them with you on their first big tour.
Right, exactly.
I'd rather be that band than the ones who were like jealous of them or giving them a hard time for their success.
Yeah, it's just literally network and make friends with everybody instead of trying not burn bridges, but make sure that your presence is known. Like, hey, I'm in this band, and we're actually gonna, we have a little bit better of a crowd, better crowd than you, or some sort like that. People, thankfully that community's been changing slightly more so than before,
exactly.
Like you said. Are you do you have any kind of insight to when you might involve in another festival of some sorts? Like if it's not Warped, if it's another.
Maybe something next spring.
Okay.
Maybe next spring. I've got a couple ideas. We'll see.
Okay. Cool.
I got to get this paperwork. I got to get something into someone, and if they maybe want to work on something, it won't be the traditional thing that maybe you've seen me do in the past.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we expect something a little bit different.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, "Hey, we need Warped Tour back." We don't know. I need one of you guys to create something better than Warped Tour.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do. You guys got to create the next thing. That'll last 25 years.
And for bands that are still working their way up, when do you think is the right time for them to? This is the one question that they always ask me because we signed to CI Records, which was a huge help in getting us out there on the market. But these local bands want to know when they are should be ready to go onto a label as well as maybe management and PR.
When you're writing great songs and you're the biggest band in your own backyard,
yeah,
become the biggest band in your own neighborhood, whether that neighborhood's a city or a county. Become the biggest band and write some great songs, and you're ready.
Yeah, because a lot of people they want to just be curious, and then they kind of get leery and push themselves out there. I was like, just keep playing local shows with us, or just keep playing local shows with other bands. Like,
but, when you can start and then build slowly and build into the next city and build into the next city and widen that network, and your arms go out so far. And I always say your arms go out as far as a tank of gas. So if you get somewhere and start building that world. If you live in a place like Southern California, that's 30 million people. That's a lot of people, or whatever we have in our state. You can reach a lot of people, but don't go past your fingertips too quick. Make sure you can handle everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you're in a community that doesn't really have a big music scene. You could basically start it, or so it's oversaturated in the market. Like California probably has a lot of bands going out there on covers, or New Jersey. But if you live in like Arkansas, and there's like 2 or 3 bands, like you already have a big lead on it, especially if you're writing good music.
And never discount being in a wedding band.
Nah, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. You play a wedding band on the side. You make money on weekends, so you can go do your passion and love the rest of the week.
Absolutely. You involve yourself because it's the original band Poeta now, and then I have like a wedding band project that we're kind of just like, you go play a gig every once in a while, you get paid, and it just pays your bills, makes you happy, gets you playing, just keeps you rolling.
Keeps you playing.
Yeah, so I'm glad everybody's staying healthy and safe during this time, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I hope you've been feeling well with the surgery, like I remember you telling me about. So that's the recovery's going pretty well.
You're feeling pretty good.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate the time. I'm definitely going to hit you up when I'm in California, stop by for something from a garden, maybe pick something like that.
Please swing by, Scott. It's been great seeing you and great jumping on your show. And man, now I'm all teched up on Skype. I did Instagram Live. I got all kinds of tech is catching up with me right now.
And it's working. It's all for the better, though. It's all for the better. It's that direct connection. All right, brother. I'll be talking to you soon. I appreciate you having me on.
Take care.
All right, man. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.